What's up, evolutionaries? It's your boy Kali, and I'm back again with another video. If this is your first time tuning into my YouTube channel, welcome to the evolution. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you for always tuning in, and thank you for your continued support. So in today's video, we will be talking about a very important topic that doesn't only affect men or women, and it doesn't only affect adults, but it affects children, adolescents, elderly. It affects everyone. And as you can see by the title of today's video, it is anxiety and depression. I'm just gonna get right into it. In today's video, we'll just be talking about the different types of depression disorders, the different type of anxiety disorders, and also ways that we can detect these disorders, the symptoms that come with them, and also treatments. I will also be sharing one life story of each. So one life story about anxiety and one about depression, so that you guys can better relate to what these disorders do and how it affects people, so that you guys can have a better understanding. All right, so let's get right into it. Fun fact: over 264 million people worldwide suffer from anxiety and depression. It is mostly seen in adults 18 years or older. However, there are rare cases where it can be seen in children and adolescents. So as long as you are between the ages of 12 to 17, you're considered an adolescent. You may have mild cases of anxiety and depression, and also even if you are less than 12 years old, you can also have mild cases of depression. The more drastic cases, if I may say, are seen in persons who are much more older. So we would say between the ages of 18, well, not between, but over the age of 18. To set a foundation of knowledge, let me share the meanings of both anxiety and depression. They have similar meanings and they also have similar symptoms, but they are both separate in their own right. So I'm going to talk about anxiety and depression separately, and then give you guys the similarities between both of them. Anxiety. This is our body's natural response to stress, right? It is also a feeling of fear or apprehension of what's to come. So you basically think and think and think and think and think about things that are in the future that you possibly have no control over, but you just feel the need to continue thinking about it. Sounds similar to me. Depression. This is a mood disorder. It can affect our daily lives. As you know, depression can put you in a state of mind where you don't want to leave your house, you don't want to even go to work, school, you don't want to do anything. And most persons with depression describe their symptoms of feelings of sadness, loss, or anger. It's just a bundle of mixed feelings that anything can just trigger it off, and you just fall deep into depression. So, with hearing the meanings of anxiety and depression, here is the link between both of them. Number one, both anxiety and depression can occur simultaneously. So, patients may describe feelings of anxiety and they may describe feelings of depression as well, which comes to the conclusion that they are suffering from both anxiety and depression. And link number two, although both anxiety and depression has their own causes, they both share similar symptoms and also similar treatments. With setting a foundation knowledge of both anxiety and depression, I will be taking both and dissecting them separately, so that you guys can have an in-depth understanding of what both are, so that you can properly equip yourself in the event that you encounter someone who is suffering from both anxiety and depression. So let's start off with anxiety. What are anxiety disorders? Regular anxiety could be the case where you are anxious for a big exam, an interview, or the start of a brand new year of school. That's regular anxiety. However, when talking about anxiety disorders, we are referring to a lingering sense of fear that stays with you for long periods of time. So when I mean long, I mean every single day, 24 hours of the day for years. That can be diagnosed as an anxiety disorder. Here are the top 3 anxiety disorders. Number 1, panic disorder. This is basically experiencing panic attacks recurringly at unexpected times. Like unexpectedly, out of the blues, you're just sitting and you just start panicking for no reason. Number 2, phobia. This is an excessive fear of a specific object, situation, or activity. So as you know, you have agoraphobia, which I think it's the fear of animals or zoo animals. You have claustrophobia, the fear of being in small spaces, and a whole lot of other phobias. So that is the fear of a specific object, situation, or activity. And number 3, possibly the one that affects most of us now, since we are living in a very technological and social age. This one is called social anxiety disorder. And that is basically the fear of being judged by people in social settings. I even can relate to that. So I'm sure that there are others out there who can relate to social anxiety disorder. I may not be diagnosed with the disorder, but the fact that we have social media and all these different mediums to communicate with persons with, we definitely can relate to having the fear of being judged in social situations. Here are the top 5 symptoms of anxiety. Number 1, restlessness. Number 2, trouble concentrating. Number 3, difficulty falling asleep. Number 4, shortness of breath. And number 5, constant worry. Causes of anxiety. A combination of factors play a role, including but not limited to genetic and environmental factors as well as brain chemistry. Researchers believe that the part of the brain responsible for fear has a lot to do with anxiety disorders. Currently, this is the main topic of research for scientists, focusing on the brain and what sections of the brain that can contribute to us having anxiety disorders. Treatments for anxiety. For the less severe cases, lifestyle changes may be implemented, which include getting more sleep, abstaining from alcohol, and also meditating. For the moderate and severe cases, there are 2 treatment options. Number 1, psychotherapy. And this is basically meeting with a psychologist or a therapist, and they basically teach you how to cope with your anxiety whenever it occurs. And number 2, medication. And the types of medication that they would give you are basically antidepressants or sedatives that will basically give you a chill kind of vibe so that you don't blow out of proportion. Here is a life story about anxiety, and this is entitled Joey's Story. Joey was a 12-year-old boy who was referred to mental health care for long-standing anxiety about losing his parents. He had begun to have anxieties as a young child and had a great trouble starting kindergarten. He had been scared for being away from home for school. He was also briefly bullied in 3rd grade, which made his anxieties worse. When his parents were late from work or when they tried to go out together, Joey became frantic, constantly calling and texting them. Joey was mostly concerned about his mother's safety, and she had gradually reduced her solo activities to a minimum. Joey and his family underwent several months of psychotherapy when Joey was 10 years old. Joey was diagnosed with separation anxiety disorder. Joey's fears appeared to be rewarded. After therapy, the parents stayed home, rarely leave Joey alone, and respond quickly to all his calls and text messages. So we see here a typical young boy who went through a lot of distraught when he was younger. His parents died, and now he is concerned about his foster parents, always worrying about them, which is natural. He was diagnosed, given the treatment, and seemed to have gotten better. Now let's move on to depression. What are depression disorders? Depression disorders basically speak about a serious medical illness that affects negatively the way you feel, think, and the way how you act. Depression can lead to a variety of physical and emotional problems and can also decrease your ability to function at work and at home. Here are the top 3 depression disorders. Number 1. Disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. This is a chronic and severe disorder that affects children ages 6 to 18. It involves frequent temper outbursts. Number 2. Persistent depressive disorder. This is seen in children and adolescents who have a depressed mood for most of the day, for multiple days, for at least 2 years. So that is the proper diagnosis for persistent depressive disorder. These children have to be depressed for at least more than half of the day, for most of the week, and for most of the month, for most of the year, for at least 2 years. And number 3, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. This affects women 1 week to 10 days before menstruation begins. They may exhibit mood swings, anger, or extreme tension. Here are the top 5 symptoms of depression. Number 1, changes in appetite. Number 2, feeling worthless or guilty. Number 3, thoughts of death or suicide. Number 4, loss of energy. And number 5, an increase in purposeless physical activity. Causes of depression. Similar to anxiety, a combination of factors play a role, including but not limited to biological differences, hormones, brain chemistry, or inherited traits. Treatments for depression. Similar to anxiety, psychotherapy and medication are used to treat depression, along with a third treatment which is called electroconvulsive therapy. Electroconvulsive therapy is reserved for patients with severe major depression. This involves electrical shocks to the brain while the patient is under anesthesia. Here is a life story about depression, and this one is called Jessica's Story. When Jessica moved to New York City, she knew her transition would be stressful. After all, she was starting a new job and settling into a new apartment. The anxiety proved too much. Jessica stopped eating, lost 15 pounds, and felt tired frequently. Thinking the anxiety was from her move, she sought out a therapist. After a lengthy search for a therapist, Jessica found a psychiatrist, and after her first visit, she had her diagnosis. It wasn't an anxiety disorder as she had suspected, it was major depressive disorder. She was given a low-dose antidepressant and another medicine to help treat the anxiety. I was surprised with the diagnosis. I called my mom after the first appointment because I had this feeling of shame. I remember asking her, "What if the medication makes me become a new person?" She reminded me there was no shame in the diagnosis. That was 6 months ago, and Jessica feels as if she has a new lease on life. And her anxiety medication is used only on an as needed basis now. She sees her psychiatrist once a week, but they're working on a long-term plan that includes meeting less frequently. So as we can see, a typical confusion between anxiety and depression, because as I said, they have similar characteristics and it is easy for us to misconstrue them. But with a professional diagnosis, Jessica was able to see that it wasn't anxiety, but it was actually major depressive disorder. She was giving antidepressants to treat the depression. Good thing she didn't need electroconvulsive therapy. And there was an increase in her mood. She changed drastically and she became a better person. And that's it for today's video. I hope you guys learned a lot about anxiety and depression. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please leave a comment below and let me know which one of the disorders best relate to you, and if you guys have been treating it, finding the right persons to talk to in order to make it better. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up or two, and also don't forget to share with your friends and family members. And finally, the big one, don't forget to subscribe to the evolution. Remember, one more subscriber equals one more supporter against all human rights infringements. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It was my pleasure being here to share with you yet another important topic. Have you guys selves a awesome summer, and Kali is signing out.